Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We're continuing our run through DS9 coverage. We are up to Armageddon Game, which is episode 13 of season 2. Aired on January 30th, 1994. Teleplay goes to Morgan Gendel, Ira Stephen Bear, and James Crocker. Story goes to Morgan Gendel, directed by Weinrich Colby. In this one, O'Brien and Bashir help two races to get rid of their biological weapons. However, both governments want to make sure no technical knowledge of the weapons can survive. We're joined by Amy for this one. How are you?
Good. Hi, everyone.
We're going to talk about Armageddon Game. We're right in the middle of season 2. You haven't seen a DS9 in a little while, I don't think.
No.
And this is a pretty good one. I think you watched a bad one previously. I can't remember. I don't think you've seen a lot of good DS9 to this point.
No, I've seen a couple of good ones. I think the last one I liked better than this one.
Oh, whatever the last one was. We'll,
Yeah.
have to look it up. But I think that we'll take a break. We'll play an audio clip, and me and Amy will come back, and we're going to break down Armageddon Game.
Commander, I have Dr. Bashir for you on subspace.
In here.
Commander, we have some good news to report.
I've already heard.
You have?
Yes, I received a message from both the Tulani and Kelleran ambassadors informing me of your success in neutralizing the harvesters. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. But the doctor here deserves the bulk of the credit.
Actually, it was a team effort.
The doctor's just being modest, sir. He was the one who came up with muon rays as a possible solution.
Luckily, it worked.
When can we expect you back?
Well, soon, I hope.
The ambassador said something about a celebration on Tulani Prime.
Yes, it's set for tonight, but the chief is quite anxious to return back to the station.
Well, it's been a long week.
Still, I think we can spare you for another day.
I agree. If that's okay with you, Chief.
I suppose another day won't kill me.
That's the spirit.
Then we'll expect you back day after tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy yourselves, gentlemen. You've earned it.
All right, here we go. Armageddon Game, middle of season 2. Stuff is happening. Characters, we're getting to know them. Biological weapons are firing off and everything, and O'Brien is drinking coffee in the afternoon.
People are changing.
People are changing. lives are turning, everything like that. Yeah, so you said before we went to the break you didn't like this episode as much as whatever the last episode was that you watched, which I find a little bit surprising, so why don't you explain?
I mean, I liked watching this episode. It was entertaining until the end. And then it was like The Departed. I was like, why did it end that way? Kind of thing. I just didn't understand. There were a lot of holes, I think, in the two races'
And their plot.
plan. You know, they could have avoided all of it. You know, they didn't have to ask Starfleet officers to help destroy their weapons, but they went out of their way to do so only so that they'd kill them and spur the anger of the Federation.
Well, I think they needed the Federation to destroy the weapons. They didn't seem to be able to do it. Bashir came up with the way for them to destroy their weapons, right? So that's okay. They need the Federation's help, obviously.
But I don't think they needed to kill them. They could have just been like, okay, thanks guys for the help, and then the Federation probably wouldn't have given them a second thought, and then they could have done, if they wanted to kill each other, if they wanted to kill the Tulani scientists who were helping. I mean, it still doesn't make that much sense to me, but at least you don't involve a third party.
Yeah, but I take we wrote them, the Tulani and the Kelleran are obsessed with getting rid of this weapon, right? Like their whole thing is to get rid of this weapon that's been destroying them for centuries or whatever. They've been fighting with each other.
They're let's create peace by slaughtering innocent people one more time.
Well, I mean, it's the peace that comes from enough bloodshed, I guess. But I mean, you made a point while we were watching it. It's like they've only known war for so long that they would see this as a possible outcome. I mean, I don't have a problem really with their plot, because I see it as they needed the Federation to destroy these weapons because they couldn't do it themselves for some reason. They had built them so well that they needed a more advanced society to come in or something and fix it for them. They kill all the scientists who know anything about it in the in those alien cultures, and then they try to kill Bashir and O'Brien because they're the last two that know anything about it. We were kind of wondering about like the hole in the plot about, well, why don't all the Talani kill each other all the time, because everyone seems to know. But I guess the understanding is that the scientists are the only ones that know what's going on here. Like, and they purged the internet of any kind of reference to this thing. No one can ever build it again. No one can build these bombs by browsing the dark corners of the internet or anything like that. And O'Brien and Bashir just kind of have to go. I thought it was okay. I don't. It feels more like those aliens to me feel more like a setup than anything. Like they exist really just to sort of drive the episode. It's not particularly well thought out. I think that what's actually most upsetting about the ending to me is the fact that they're just like, oh, they got away. Yeah. And then they kind of give up at that point.
Yeah, if you're gonna make, I mean, I understand if they want to kind of open up this complex idea about like how you bring about peace between two societies that have been at war for so long, at least spend some time building the characters of the ambassadors. You know, they're so shallowly written in this episode, and they're the drivers of all this that are they just really bad people? I mean, I don't trust that those societies are going to even survive without war because of their thinking, and they, you know, and then at the end, and if they're just going to shrug their shoulders at the end when they know that the two of them got away, why even try to kill them in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, my big problem with it is they just kind of like, oh, they got in a shuttlecraft, or they got in the other runabout and they escaped, and then it's like you never see anything come out of it. It goes back to Deep Space Nine, and you see everyone's back to normal. But I think that I don't think it's not really an episode about the aliens as much. Like it's pretty much an episode about the Bashir and O'Brien relationship. These two are going to go on to they become like the best friends of the show. Like they're sort of like one of the patrons I think just remarked that they were like the most realistic portrayal of like friendship that Star Trek has ever seen. And at this point they aren't really all that kosher with each other. They've had a couple episodes where they interact with each other, but not really. This is seen as like the sort of the starting point of that, where that sort of develops. And so I think that the lack of like the alien culture examination is fine. It's kind of like wishy-washy. If the episode was all like that, it wouldn't be particularly good, but I think that it shines because it brings in that kind of relationship, and I think that their scenes are written pretty well with each other.
I would agree. Yeah, that's why, I mean, I enjoyed watching the episode up until the last 5 minutes, because I liked the scenes between O'Brien and Julian.
Well, we always thought in TNG got into this template where they would have a character story and they would add a B story to it, and the character story was always like this like emotional interpersonal conflict, and then they'd add a sci-fi B story onto it to like give you an A and B story in a single episode. And in those character episodes, it always became kind of laughable on TNG that the sci-fi plot was never particularly good. It was like they kind of just had two lists of plots and they stuck them together randomly, and that would be kind of a bad case for the episode. I don't think that this one is that bad, but I think that the sci-fi angle is not quite as good in this one. And I think the idea was good. They just didn't execute it well. Yeah. You know, I think the premise of it is okay. Yeah. You know, I don't like mind it. They just morality play about nuclear weapons or whatever.
Yeah, and like how the Federation will inevitably play a role in it, and because of so I think they just dropped the ball, I think, on sealing it up and making us really kind of care about that conflict, or even about the ambassadors who spearheaded this whole thing. Those two were just pretty empty characters to me. Yeah. That, you know, but yeah, I think the O'Brien and Julian friendship is like based on honesty from the get go. I mean, O'Brien, they couldn't be more different, and
they don't like each other really.
Well, I think like Julian is like so
eager to please.
Yeah, he's like.
Well, I mean, how old do you think Bashir is supposed to be?
Yeah, he seems like he could be in his like late 20s or something.
He is in his he's 28, I think, at the time. So someone had mentioned he mentions in the first season he's 27, so he's 28 at this point. I watch it and I don't get the age difference really.
O'Brien seems older to me.
He is supposed to be older. I'm pretty sure I don't know if I think he goes by the name Siddiq Al-Fadil at this point. I don't think Bashir. I don't know how old the actor is playing Bashir at this point. But I always watch it not really getting the age difference outside of the way that they act to each other. You get it from the dialogue that they have, because O'Brien is like the sort of world weary, like seen it all, doesn't expect big things, kind of realistic person, and Bashir is the overly optimistic, like shoot for the stars, sleep with a bunch of chicks character. And O'Brien's married, obviously, so that's like the pairing off between them. But they I mean, the sense is that this is an episode that's kind of a turning point, because they don't really like each other at the start. They have the very good scene where Cisco's like, when are you coming back? And Bashir wants to stay for another day.
Yeah, and Brian's just like, oh.
it's that horrible situation where the other...
that made me laugh. That was a good, like...
What's the... just reminds me of that... Remember that British Problems show?
Yeah.
That we used to watch?
Yeah, your parents' house.
There was a good one about... just the guy who, it's like, it hit me so hard. It's like a truthful thing. It's like when you're staying at your in-laws, you're reliant on your spouse to be like, well, it's time to get the fuck out of here, because you can't just tell your in-laws like, well, I've had enough of you guys. I'm going to get the hell out of here right now.
Yeah, that's so true. And in that scenario, I would like totally be the...
You'd be the
like,
one who,
I'd be the Julian. I'd be like, well, it's fine. Like, let's just stay. And you would be like, oh my God.
One more day won't kill me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'd totally be that.
So I think that that scene is really good. It sort of sets the course for them. Bashir wants to stay behind and party. O'Brien has a wife and kid at home that he kind of needs to go to. It kind of shows the now that we have a spouse and kid, it kind of shows you the it's a little bit of like insightful into the people without kids mindset, where it's like they kind of need a reminder that you have to go every once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's a good setup for those two. They solve the problem. They've solved the problem. They want to stay for a day, and then they get attacked, and they beam themselves into basically some kind of hut in the desert or something, where they're going to hole out until Cisco can come and rescue them. And then we have a bunch of scenes of them talking about marriage and Bashir's lost love life and stuff like that. So what did you think of those two in terms of this episode?
Yeah, I like those two. I think it's definitely like a good foundation for it to go somewhere else. I can believe that they could build a friendship on that. I think those are the kinds of friendships that are always interesting to watch, because they, you know, they won't be like mushy towards each other. You know, it's always just going to be O'Brien's inability to put a face on things, and him just to be straightly tell Julian, like, shut up, you're being annoying right now. Like, you have to stop, like, kissing my ass. It's okay. Yeah. And then Julian, like, his lack of self-awareness. Yeah. It's always like, you know, O'Brien will, you know, show that to him. So I think I enjoyed the scenes with the two of them. I think I like, is it Cole Meany? Is that, I like his acting. Yeah, he's a good actor. I think he's, I wonder if he's a good actor, or if he's just kind of playing himself in this role. I haven't seen him in too much other things. He's been in like AMC's Wheels on Fire, I think, is the other series that he's known for. And he's in The Commitments, which we've seen, but he basically plays he's an angrier version of O'Brien in that. So yeah, I mean, that's fine if you can do it well. Yeah, if you're cast appropriately. That's fine. If you can make it seem effortless, then in that role, then that's fine for me. Yeah. So I think that he's maybe not a great actor, but he's very effective at playing himself in this situation. And O'Brien is the everyman character of this. He's supposed to be like the audience's perspective into this world in some ways, because he's the most grounded and things like that. Yeah, not necessarily career driven, just good at what he does, solid at what he does, doesn't complain. And I don't think they mentioned in this episode what's unique about O'Brien is that he's not commissioned, so he's not a officer, so he doesn't actually have any rank for them. So like Bashir outranks him and everything like that. How did O'Brien get such a high-ranking post, or such a well-respected post? I guess not a high-ranking. He's just like a engineer, basically. You can be a non-Starfleet engineer. I would think so. I wouldn't think there's any reason that you need to be like go to officer school to have a engineering job like that on a station like that. You know, maybe on the Enterprise it makes more sense because you need like chain of command in that kind of situation, which there is on DS9, but I don't know if his role needs a
naval school academy graduate to come out of it.
Got it. No, I mean, it seems pretty important.
His position?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's
like Geordi.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, he is. What was he? He's chief of operations. Something of that. So, Ops is Data's the. You're looking here like.
Excuse me, I got the.
Data is the officer. He's more like Data, except less. He doesn't sit in a chair like Data does. I think that the what's funny about bringing up Data and Geordi are like the other friendship that we can have before that, but Data and Geordi's friendship is not really realistic in a lot of sense, mostly because Data's a robot, so they always have that sort of awkward pairing about like Geordi has to show Data what's going on. TOS, maybe Spock and Kirk and Bones. You don't really get the friendship. I know the movies tell me that they're all friends and everything, but you get more like those guys are just coworkers who get along
and they always have to deal with crisis together, so they're constantly just problem solving together.
Those three, you mean Kirk, Spock?
Yeah, yes, it's a different dynamic between Julian and O'Brien because they wouldn't naturally come together.
Right, the work isn't driving.
Yeah,
the work isn't right, and that's the TOS point. Is like the work is driving those guys together. Data and Geordi is kind of now that we've gotten out of TOS, it's like they're not that. Their friendship isn't that interesting on some level. It's more like a science fair project, just something like it's.
Yeah, and you can't do too much with Data. The nature of Data's character, he
can't have those
learning how to be
conversations.
human. He can't have that kind of.
You couldn't have a talk about marriage conversation with Data, and if O'Brien was with Data down on this planet, it's like it'd be a totally different episode.
Or have the thing where you're friends with someone whose traits you find annoying, yet you still like come to care about them, and you have to like you come to care about them despite their annoying traits. And I think all of us have friends.
Yeah.
Like that you're constantly having to look beyond that, and like you realize like moments after you're like, oh, shut up, and then you're like, oh, I love him, like,
Yeah, and I think
great.
I think that's why this is the first one that's really shown like a potential to be irritated by your friends. I think is the reason that the Bashir and O'Brien thing they have a great chemistry together with each other. They they are opposite, but also both endearing enough where it works that they make sense on some level. And I think the biggest problem to me with the episode is that it's kind of melodramatic in a few ways that I don't really like, because we're going to get to the patron thoughts about what people thought, but there was there's a general undercurrent of people not thinking that the crew handles their potential deaths well enough. And I thought that the staff meeting where Sisko breaks the news to all the other, like Odo, Kira, and Dax are in there. He breaks the news. I thought that was good. Like I understand because Starfleet's basically a military organization, so they should be kind of used for this kind of thing. Like they have to be professionals about it. The Keiko scene is not particularly good, mostly because Rosalind Chow I think it's Chow. Rosalind Chow is not the best actress that the show has, so it's kind of tough to put her in that position.
It felt too understated.
Her reaction to it, yeah, where she's
I just didn't quite believe that she would be so.
She reacted like she had irradiated him herself,
she reacted like a soldier would react, like Kira would, or something. Yeah. Where you are. And we're
setting up the fact she doesn't want to be there, so she's not that kind of person.
Yeah, I would expect. I wasn't expecting that reaction, and that's
Sisko got more choked up than I think she did.
Yeah, I think all four of them did. That their reaction was more moving to me than hers.
Yeah, and that's always going to be a kind of a weakness, and I like the Quark, Kira, and Dax at the bar. That scene where Quark gives them the free drinks, and they sort of says like a toast to O'Brien and stuff like that, and Bashir. I thought that was pretty good. I just think that I don't think they undersell the drama or the grief that they're going through. I almost think they kind of oversell it on some level, because we know that they're alive still, but it's also, the episode is not really about dealing with the grief.
Right.
So it's in this no man's land of like, I don't know if these scenes are necessary, but they kind of are, just because two people did just die, and maybe we should have some scenes about dealing with it.
Well, and they're important enough characters that you should care that they would make some kind of an impact.
Right. So it's kind of one of those Star Trek episode problems where it's like, are there too many plot lines? Like if you had an episode that you wanted to do that stuff and you just like Bashir and O'Brien were like locked in a closet or something, like no one could, it's something like you don't see them for a long time. And then you deal with like how the characterization works about grieving for them is one episode. And then there's this other episode where you see everything that's happening to them, but you don't want to waste too much time with the grief process because it doesn't really matter in the long run.
Yeah, unless Sisko, I was getting the sense initially that Sisko was just going to be super skeptical about their story from the get-go. And that, he was just going to doubt the truth of it from the beginning. I mean, and he's going to tell his officers, obviously, like, this is what happened, yet at the same time coming up with ways to try to figure out what really happened, but he never did. He doesn't
really have a reason to be suspicious of them.
I guess so.
I mean, it's kind of it's kind of it would be a scenario if someone told you that, you'd be like, really? Like, it's just kind of like the weirdness of people just coming up and be like, yeah, those two are dead. Like, sorry, we came by to tell you this, like, in person. We didn't send you an email or anything like that or make an announcement.
Yeah, we had this, like, deathly security system that we had no idea existed.
It exists, yeah. So I don't know. I don't mind that, and I actually like the grieving scenes outside of the Keiko scene, so I don't really have a problem with it. And I don't know if they really could have fit much more into the O'Brien Bashir stuff because we get the full story from then too. So I don't really have a problem with the way that they did this. It's just kind of one of those things about like there's a lot of storylines going on here. Maybe it would have been better to focus, maybe not.
Yeah, and I think TNG had this problem too. It's like when you try to take on a complex storyline like this, it's like they just don't quite, in the time allotted, like don't quite know how to handle all of it.
Yeah.
So it's, you're left with kind of these like mediocre scenes, and then you're glad that at least the acting, like the strong acting of like, Julian and O'Brien kind of carried you through. And then also the scenes on the station were good also. So you kind of have these strong performances that carry you through, yet you just have to, I was just like shrugging my shoulders, like those, like the plot at the end just, I was like,
it knocked it down for you.
It did. I mean, it makes it seem so trivial.
Yeah. Yes, they don't have time to spend on any gravitas for that situation, so it doesn't really
but they want to take it on. They obviously want to examine it, but they don't quite know how to like bring it home.
See, I don't know. I don't even think the episode is really interested in like the analogy of like disarmament. I don't think it's really about that. Like the episode isn't really interested in like why they're. I mean, obviously it's good that they're disarming their sort of chemical, biological weapon industry, but the episode isn't interested in the outcome of that, except for being just a MacGuffin of this is what's going to drive the action here. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's fair to expect them to do anything with it. I do agree that it's kind of unsatisfying by the very end, but I don't really know that they were missing anything like an explanation-wise or like an examination into it.
I guess so. I mean, maybe I'm just thinking because I'm more familiar with TNG, but it's like if you're going to, examine something as complex as the Federation's role diplomatically.
Yeah.
I mean, their role is they're going to be involved in these other nations and settling things and then bringing about peace.
I think, but that would be a totally different episode, right? If they wanted to approach it from that angle. Like the conflict would be something else. The conflict would be like one side doesn't want to disarm. And what does the Federation do in that case? Because there's no quagmire here for the Federation. They're like, both sides are like, yeah, destroy
Except they were just used as pawns by those two.
No, they weren't used as pawns. They were like...
Yeah, they were. They knew they were... The Talani and the Kelleran knew they were going to kill them. So it could have been anybody, but they're like, we'll just bring these two Federation people in to help us, and then we're just going to have to kill them at the end. Yeah,
but they're not pawns because they're important to fixing the problem. Pawns would imply that they're like being like carelessly used. You know what I mean?
Okay, they're being set up.
But not they're not really being set up because the aliens need them to get rid of the biological weapons.
Yeah, once they use them for their purposes, then they're going to kill them.
Yeah, but I think the setup would be they want to kill them, so they set up a trick to get them there, but there's no real trick. Like they're actually want to solve the problem, and it's unfortunate that they have to kill them, I guess, at the very end.
Except, in my opinion, they don't have to kill them. It was like this like thing that they decided to make more complicated, and then at the end they were like, fuck it, it's fine. They're not going to come back. That's why it's silly to me.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't mean to like dismiss the whole episode because I did enjoy watching it. I found that just like.
Yeah, I think we have a disagreement about the reason for them to be there. I guess the reason for O'Brien and Bashir to be there, you don't think is important enough for.
No, I think it's important. They needed to destroy the weapons and help destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the Talani and the Kelleran had to have them killed because it just opened up a can of worms that they did not have to deal with. Because once Julian and O'Brien were beamed back on the ship, the Federation would have been like, peace out, like, good luck with your future endeavors. Like, they wouldn't have checked in on them again.
Well, it's too bad they're not a race of aliens, like a lot of races of aliens that have, like, a mind-wiping technology. It would have been a lot easier if they could have wiped their minds, I suppose.
Yeah, good call. They seem to not really know how to deal with their technology.
Well, that could have been the other outcome if Bashir is like, I can wipe because TNG has shown that you can like selectively wipe people's memories. So if there's like, we'll wipe our minds and no one will know about this. But as you say,
only a seasoned Star Trek person would have been able to come up with that.
That's right, baby.
You should have been on the writing team.
So but what the hell was I going to say? I mean, yeah, that's the other solution. But as you say, and as you were saying through the whole thing, I think it's important that the aliens have been fighting for so long that they only know that you have to run in and shoot people.
Yeah, well, that's all they know. It's like their flawed perspective is born of this, life of war, like a century of war. So, they're not all of a sudden going to understand diplomacy and, how to kind of deal with things peacefully. They bring about the end of war with innocent bloodshed.
Probably could have been a more violent-looking race. They seem like pretty.
Yeah,
okay.
They look like a flock of seagulls.
They do look like flock of seagulls.
They look like good people to me.
And they ran. So we're going to take a break, read some patient thoughts.
Sure.
Want to do that? Okay. So we will play an audio clip. Me and Amy will be back. We'll give patient thoughts. We'll give our final thoughts. We'll call it a day.
We may have had our differences, but I'll say this for them, and it's the highest tribute I can think of. They were good customers. They always paid their bar bills on time.
That's it?
I'm not done yet. At times like this, I'm reminded of the 57th rule of acquisition. Good customers are as rare as latinum. Treasure them.
As always, guys, if you support the show at patreon.com/the Pensky File, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes and they get read on the podcast. Any level of support on Patreon lets you do that. But yeah, so we'll get to it. So Holly McLaughlin writes...
She writes, I think the grief is underdone. Losing 2 beloved crew members in one blow, especially a family man leaving behind a fatherless child, would have hit the crew harder. Yeah, certainly the grief is underdone by his wife, who's supposed to love him best of all.
Well,
she doesn't even know his coffee habits, which that was kind of a funny.
Yeah, we didn't actually even talk about that. End. I guess we can insert that here. The do you feel like you know enough about the O'Brien relationship to talk about them? Have you seen them enough?
Not really.
So the O'Briens are weird because they are constantly. It's very rare that they're shown as like a loving, supporting couple. Like they're usually bickering with each other, which is the undertone here of the whole Chief backstory where he's like, Keiko doesn't want to actually be here. I feel very bad. He doesn't feel very bad, actually. He's like, yeah, it's fine. we fight a lot and that's good. But I guess like, why do you think the show would struggle showing a relationship like that? Because this is the only relationship on the show, and it's kind of a funny thing throughout Star Trek. Not a lot of the characters are in relationships.
Well, I think Julian kind of hits the nail on the head, and that's been the reason why most career Starfleeters aren't, because the life doesn't lend itself to it. So
right.
There's like no time to be intimate because you're constantly being called off to to risk your life and do other things. And I think everyone understands that there's just this inherent risk and loss in it, that why not just have fun sex with a flock of seagulls? Mm-hmm. That seems better.
stay for a day. I mean, I think that makes sense, but couldn't you say that about people in the military? And people in the military get married all the time. You know what I mean? It's funny to me that looking at it's something that I don't really notice until I think about it, but there's not a lot of relationships in the show, which maybe is indicative of the people who are writing it. But like when they write relationships like this, it always comes off very odd. Like the O'Briens, I don't find to be a believable married couple on a lot of levels. Like they're very, they seem like a 20-something-year-old writer's perception of what a marriage would be. Just in how they interact. And she's not a particularly good actress, so it's kind of like everything is kind of dragging everything else down. But I think that they don't do a very good job here, although I kind of like the meta joke aspect of she doesn't really know him. What he does.
Yeah, which that, like, you know, as a married person kind of made me smile, where I was just like, you, as much as you claim like, oh, I know my husband, he would never do that. It's like, it kind of puts a twist on it, like you don't really know. And it
also fixes the problem that you could say that her noticing the coffee thing is too weird of a detail for her to notice and be like, oh, come on, that's kind of bullshit. So when she is wrong about it at the end, it kind of saves that a little bit and makes it like, oh, that's kind of like, that's cute on some level.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I liked that twist. But I don't know the show enough to be able to talk intelligently about why they don't write in romantic relationships. I mean,
well, they write in romantic relationships. They don't write in long-term, quote-unquote, like steadier marriages.
But maybe it's more effective to have relationships like, you know, Sisko's profound loss of his wife, you know, because of just the inherent dangers of what they're doing. That he experienced great loss because of his choice of career.
Mm-hmm. He starts a relationship in the show at some point. I'm not proving you. I'm not saying that you're wrong or anything, but I think that they start to change it a little bit. And I like your explanation about why that makes sense for Bashir, right? Bashir not being married that's his explanation. He's like, I'm off being a swashbuckling Starfleet doctor out on the edge of the final frontier. But for a lot of the others, Sisko's wife is dead, obviously. So that's an acceptable reason for her not to be around. But the others, make a little bit less. Odo makes sense, I guess. Kira kind of makes sense. Dax, I guess they all have reasons why you could see them not being in relationships like that, but just the fakeness of the O'Brien relationship kind of sticks out to me when it's the only example that we have.
Yeah, it's lack of nuance, you mean?
Yeah, it just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like a real, not even a marriage, it doesn't feel like a relationship. It doesn't feel like those two even know each other outside of like the scenes that they interact with each other. Yeah. It feels a little bit forced. You can go to the immunities one because he responds to Holly, I think. So immunities and audio
drama by Zam Nuclear Wessel. He responds to Holly and he says, I agree they're not playing the grief full force, but I think there has to be a compromise somewhere because we're going to lose these people multiple times. Agreed, they might not have hit it right, but I also wouldn't want a full blowout every time this happens. Maybe Starfleet teaches a course in deferring your grief until you're absolutely certain your crewmate isn't coming back to life. And I mean, that's true. I mean, as viewers, you know.
As viewers, you know they're coming back. Yeah. And I think that in universe, they're supposed to be professionals. Like, this is basically the military. They can't be losing their shit every time someone dies.
I did not mind. I thought Sisko was appropriately grave and respectful about it. I mean, he has to handle it. I mean, I didn't have a problem with that.
It's just Keiko. Keiko's the weakest link in the entire thing.
Yeah, like I would even be okay with like an understated. If I could believe that she was a strong woman like that, if she was like a
military wife who's been prepared for this,
or like a military person herself who was constantly faced with the fear of loss, then I could believe that she would, you know, be able to finish Sisko's sentence. But that wasn't like a believable way to write her.
No scene with Molly either, the kid.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah,
probably would not have been a good scene is the reason that they didn't
maybe
do
she
it.
just totally shit the bed when
they
tried it out.
Molly's like 5 or something at this point, so it's tough to get a 5-year-old to give any kind of a good performance like that. The next one.
Mildly entertaining, this is Stephen Kalb, mildly entertaining mystery thriller, but Miles never had his second cup of coffee at home.
That's in quotes.
Yeah, is a quote from Keiko. Yeah, it's a good twist.
It has vegetable oils and caffeine. Wouldn't that be tea as well? Did she not? Yeah. Did she not disprove what Cisco had asked for? Kira had asked if like maybe he was having tea. It could have been
tea, yeah.
But at the same point, why bring? That was a weird point for Kira to bring up because tea would also keep you. Tea has caffeine in it.
Yeah, he doesn't drink any caffeine. Well, maybe it was just he just doesn't drink caffeine at the end of the day.
Right. That would be my understanding of why you don't drink coffee. So why is Kira like, oh, does he drink Coca-Cola? It's like, no, he doesn't drink caffeine. It keeps him up all night. Next.
Kyle Barrett. A quietly brilliant episode and one of my favorites of the second season. O'Brien and Bashir's relationship is fantastic, and while it's often just played for comedy, as in The Rivals, here the humor is mixed with genuine emotion. The twists and the scenes at the station are great too, except for Keiko, who proves to be the weak link. Rosalind Chow is probably the weakest actress on the show, and the coffee thing is a tad too ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kyle didn't write a joke for you to stomp all over this.
No, I'd agree with Kyle.
Yeah, I think so. Chow is the weakest link. It's tough to write episodes that have to deal with that, so they kind of try to avoid it whenever possible. She's good in some situations. In Rivals, they had a good relationship because it was kind of played for a goofy supportive role, which was necessary. Next up.
Joint Mango, and then Armageddon Game is good. The show sure has a storyteller on this episode. O'Brien must suffer too, which is always terrific.
It becomes kind of a trope on the show that O'Brien must suffer. He's in a lot of episodes that have him
like sick or
hurt. Emotionally traumatic or something's gone wrong.
He plays it well.
Yeah, he's good.
Matthew and Ross. I enjoyed this one, although I did find the alien motives a tad bit too Schmersh-like on killing everyone.
I don't know what Schmersh is. Yeah, I don't know if you know if that is either.
I don't know.
I think it's a Babylon 5 reference, judging by Matthew's previous comment.
Like wishy-washy?
I actually don't know what Schmersh means. It's all capitals, right?
If it's wishy-washy, I would agree. And everyone I heard harvesters. And every time I heard harvesters, I could not help but imagine tiny little tractors inside people's bloodstreams.
I also think of tractors, yeah.
Yeah. The interaction between Bashir and O'Brien firmly cements their rivalry/friendship. Overall enjoyable, and the tension of getting caught on the planet and having O'Brien get really sick was interesting and a good romp. It's interesting how O'Brien just kind of fell into engineering. Interesting happenstance. Just like Keiko guessing about the coffee, Lord help us if my wife has to guess what amount of coffee I drink. One thing that always amazed me and fits into the usual ST trope is that the command staff has to go and do stuff. Naturally, the chief medical officer and engineer have to go to this place. Naturally, the command crew, Cisco and Dax, have to pick up the runabout. I guess Ensign Ricky? I don't know who that Ensign Ricky was busy. And again,
he's just saying like a generic underling character isn't the one going out and doing these things.
Yeah. But it never was in any of the other shows. It's always someone important.
He's just pointing that the goofiness of like, it's always important people to do things.
Yeah. But then we wouldn't care if it wasn't. And again, falling back into formula, we never see or hear of the Talani again.
Yep.
Yeah, again, yeah. They'll just...
I mean, that's kind of a unique problem to DS9 because you think you'd see them because they can't be that far from the station on some levels. You think you'd run into them again. TNG, it makes sense that you never run into these people again because you just never go back to that part of the galaxy. Like you're constantly moving around.
Yeah. Deep Space Nine is stationary.
Yeah, so DS9 always kind of has a weird situation like that where they meet an alien race and then they never talk to them again because it's like, well, they should be right there, right next to you.
Yeah. You think they'd have constant communication with certain allies and
yes,
that
it's just
thing.
They'd know the neighborhood, which they do kind of get into that a little bit. But that's it. So thank you very much, patrons. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for your comments. And we'll give it our ratings now. So on our 1 to 5 scale, Amy, what are you going to give this one?
I can give it like a solid 3.5.
3.5? 3.6.
You're giving it a 3.6?
No.
Oh.
I'll give it a 4.
Wow.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
No, I think it's
wow.
On my scale, I think you could show that episode to somebody. I think it's kind of a weak 4, but I think it's better that we've watched some average episodes in the past couple of weeks, and this has been a better than average episode. I think.
It is better than average, and you're right. The scenes, the O'Brien Julian scenes are
worth
good,
it,
and they're gripping. Like you're watching it the whole time.
If it was a show about the aliens and their plot, it probably would have been a 3. That's a very generic Star Trek-y thing to do, but I think that it's good enough as it is. I think enough to give it a 4. It's a weak 4, but I think I'll give it a 4. You'll give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.5, but it could just be my lack of knowledge of the series that affects my ratings.
You can give the episode whatever rating you want.
I know, but you just
giving you the stink eye.
Hear it with caution or with a grain of salt, I guess.
That's about it. So I'll give it a 4. Amy will give it a 3. That's Armageddon.
3.5.
Amy gives it a 3.5.
0.5s are important.
Yeah, they add up.
They do. For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. You end up with a harvester syndrome after a while.
One day you can explain to your listeners what a 0.5 means.
Sure. I'll leave them hanging for right now. Let's see here. That's about it. Thank you guys very much for listening. If you want to support the show and you enjoyed the content today, you can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile. A couple of dollars a month, you can either leave thoughts about upcoming episodes, you get extra podcasts, you get the vlog stuff that goes on there, blah, blah, blah. All the social media will be linked below, Facebook, Twitter, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then we have our list of patrons. You support the show as soon as the internet comes back here. There we go. If you support the show at the captain level tier, you get a little shout out at the end of the episode, which I'll read through now. Vincent Adultman, Stephen Cobb, Nathan Elliott, Ewan Tibbetts, Decker Sebastiani, Neil Brennan, Carrier Mobility, Doug Valcamp, Michael Pond, Bradley Killens, Rune Vendler, Jay Stanley, Mike Burnett, Matthew Ross, Ben Douglas, Kyle Barrett, Tarek Latif. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. It's much appreciated. And anything else that we have to say? I have to...
Thanks for helping us put food on the table.
That's right. Thanks for helping me pay the electric bill. Discord. I did set up the Discord, so I linked the Discord, which is basically like a Skype chat room based thing, to the Patreon. So if you guys use Discord, in any sense of the word, you can log on to the server. There will be a link in the video description, and you can leave comments. And people have already started doing that. I'll post the episodes, and then you can just sort of comment there. It's just an easier way to stay in touch, I suppose, and it's more of a chat room type thing. So if you use Discord and you want to leave some feedback, you can do it there as well, because I think I'll try to shut down my Facebook and commenting a little bit. There's too many sites that you have to visit to keep updating all the time. You're looking at me like I'm an insane person right now.
No, I agree with that.
No, I think that's the... so that'd be good. Discord, Patreon, and Twitter are the best way. Oh, YouTube, I guess, is a good way to comment as well.
You know my feelings on Facebook.
Yep. Instagram. Follow Amy on Instagram at deleted account.
You'll find nothing.
Let's see. I think that's it. So, let's see here. Oh, non sequitur thoughts. We end each episode now. I don't know if you know this because you don't listen to the show, but
I listen to the show.
we do non sequitur thoughts at the very end, so you can just talk about something very briefly if you have anything that funny or weird that you want to talk about. Do you have anything else?
Well, you go first.
I'll try to. I couldn't really think of anything, or I didn't spend time thinking about it. You make this horrible look. I don't think I have anything, really. Did we do anything?
Is this non sequiturs about the episode or just like it?
No, just about your life, whatever's going on, whatever you got happening.
You know, I don't have too much happening except I hang out with a toddler all day, so my brain cells are just slowly dying every day.
It's now like 8:30 at night. We're fading. The kid is asleep, and I don't know if I have I feel like I have to have something.
Well, I'm kind of thinking about the fact like going to the funny scene between O'Brien and Julian, where like Julian wants to like stay and party and flirt with some Talanis
who weren't that attractive from the ones I saw. They were fine, but they weren't.
We didn't get a good sampling. We
got one, right? We saw one.
I don't even
the
remember.
Woman, just the one that's like in command of the ship at the very end. No, she was
attractive, she was
but
Kelleran, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the difference between those two. They might as well be the same thing.
Their hair was...
Anyway, go.
But just the comparing O'Brien to us, the work of staying out late. Like, I have dinner plans tomorrow night, and as I look at the clock, I'd be like, God, I would just be getting to the restaurant now. How am I gonna survive? I'm so tired.
You're not gonna. I guess
there's my non sequitur.
I guess my non sequitur would just be that we'll keep it parent themed for like the Molly. And this isn't a Molly centric episode. Molly's not actually even in this episode, but we'll keep it O'Brien themed, where he's the baby is now getting through. We went through like a sleep regression for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months or something like that.
It felt like a couple of years.
It's hard to call it a regression when you spend like a quarter of your life like that. So just if anyone's curious, I guess the worst part about having a kid, really, like the only bad thing is their sleep regressions to me. Like the incredible pangs of sadness you feel when it's like 2:30 in the morning and he's just yelling in the other room and you're like, you motherfucker, you go back to bed.
Yeah, I know. I kind of turned into a zombie monster. I think that was one of my lowest points as a human being.
Yeah, the angriest you've ever been when you shook your child and said, "Why don't you go back to bed, you little son of a bitch."
No, well, in my defense, I was working a lot of night shifts. I was on like 3 weeks of nights.
Amy, no one cares about your excuses. But yeah, I did shut our bedroom door, and I was like, I can't listen to it. People complain about diapers and like feeding them. It's like, that's the easiest stuff in the world. It's only the interference of your sleep is like the hardest, besides like having to figure out how to like take care of them if you have to work during the day. But it's like, I'm talking about like on an emotional, like traumatic level.
Yeah, loss of sleep.
Loss of sleep is probably the worst thing.
Yeah, that's what I tell people when they're like, someone asked me like, what is like the biggest, my friend Becca and I said the same thing. Like a girl asked us, she didn't have kids yet, but she was like, what was like the greatest change in your life? And after having children, I think she was expecting us to say something moving and profound, and we were just like, you're just tired. You're really tired to the point where you like don't have control over how tired you are, and you like can't really fix it. And so
it's kind of it's like a low-key sleep deprivation torture session. It's like he's basically like a little military guy who's playing like rock and roll albums outside your bed the entire night.
Yeah, and he would do this weird thing recently where he like wouldn't like be up like every 2 hours screaming, and then he'd wake up at 6 and he'd be like, oh hey guys, like he was like so happy.
Well, that's what happens when you sleep 13 hours as a toddler. People should get used to it, I guess. Not 13 hours straight, but just 13 independent segments of hours that you're sleeping. Anyway.
But having children is really wonderful. Everyone should try.
We'll call it there for a day. Call it there for an episode. We'll be back with Whispers, which will be the first patron guest episode. Me and Clay and patron Neil will be podcasting about Whispers. So you can look for that. The episode after that, which will be Monday. I think we're recording this weekend. Yeah, we are. So it'll be Monday. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Amy, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for tolerating me, guys. Clay will be back soon.
And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.